Welcome back to Wings of Bibles. I'm Dustin, and today we'll be covering 91-117, 91-119, and 91-121. Starting off here, we have 91-117 aircraft speed. Unless otherwise authorized by the administrator, no person may operate an aircraft below 10,000 feet MSL at an indicated airspeed of more than 250 knots or 288 miles per hour. Unless otherwise authorized or required by ATC, no person may operate an aircraft at or below 2,500 feet above the surface within 4 nautical miles of the primary airport of a Class Charlie or Class Delta airspace area at an indicated airspeed of more than 200 knots, 230 miles per hour. This paragraph B does not apply to any operations within a Class Bravo airspace area. Such operations shall comply with paragraph A of this section. So this section is saying if you're going to be 2,500 feet above the surface within 4 nautical miles of a Class Charlie or a Class Delta, you can't fly faster than 200 knots or 230 miles per hour unless authorized by ATC. Now it's also saying in a Class Bravo, you have to comply with paragraph A up here. Moving on, no person may operate an aircraft in the airspace underlying a Class Bravo airspace area designated for an airport or in a VFR corridor designated through such a Class Bravo airspace area at an indicated airspeed of more than 200 knots or 230 miles per hour. So it's saying you can't fly underneath the airspace of a Class Bravo or through a VFR corridor in a Class Bravo at a speed greater than 200 knots or 230 miles per hour. If the minimum safe airspeed for any particular operation is greater than the maximum speed prescribed in this section, the aircraft may be operated at that minimum speed. So these are the rules, and here's the exception to those rules. Next we have 91-119 minimum safe altitudes, general. Except when necessary for takeoff or landing, no person may operate an aircraft below the following altitudes. Anywhere, any altitude allowing, if a power unit fails, an emergency landing without undue hazard to persons or property on the surface. When you're flying over congested areas, over any congested area of a city, town, or settlement, or over any open air assembly of persons, an altitude of 1,000 feet above the highest obstacle within a horizontal radius of 2,000 feet of the aircraft. If you're flying over other than congested areas, an altitude of 500 feet above the surface, except over open water or sparsely populated areas. In those cases, the aircraft may not be operated closer than 500 feet to any person, vessel, vehicle, or structure. For helicopters and powered parachutes and weight shift control aircraft, if the operation is conducted without hazard to persons or property on the surface, a helicopter may be operated at less than the minimums prescribed in paragraph B or C, which are these paragraphs of this section, provided each person operating the helicopter complies with any routes or altitudes specifically prescribed for helicopters by the FAA, and a powered parachute or weight shift control aircraft may be operated at less than the minimums prescribed in paragraph C of this section. And how do we know that we're complying with the minimum safe altitudes? Well, we use our altimeter, and 91-121 is altimeter settings. So these are rules governing altimeter settings. Each person operating an aircraft shall maintain the cruising altitude or flight level of that aircraft as the case may be by reference to an altimeter that is set when operating below 18,000 feet to the current reported altimeter setting of a station along the route and within 100 nautical miles of the aircraft. If there is no station within the area prescribed in paragraph A1I of this section, the current reported altimeter setting of an appropriate available station, or, in the case of an aircraft not equipped with a radio, the elevation of the departure airport, or an appropriate altimeter setting available before departure. So if you're below 18,000 feet, this is how you're going to set your altimeter based on your scenario. At or above 18,000 feet to 2992 inches of mercury. So if you're above 18,000 feet, you have to set your altimeter setting, your Colesman window, to 2992. The lowest usable flight level is determined by the atmospheric pressure in the area of operation as shown in the following table. Now you might be a little bit confused looking at these tables because you've probably never heard of this as a pilot, and there's good reason for that. These tables are for ATC. So you as the pilot are going to calibrate your altimeter to 2992 inches of mercury, and then based on the actual altimeter setting, ATC will assign you an altitude. So here are the altimeter settings above 18,000 feet, and here are the lowest usable flight level. So for example, if the altimeter setting is 2941 through 2892, the lowest usable flight level that ATC can use is going to be 190, or 19,000 feet. To convert minimum, paragraph C says, to convert minimum altitude prescribed under 91.119, which we just went over, which is minimum safe altitudes, and 91.177, which is minimum safe altitudes for IFR, to the minimum flight level, the pilot shall take the flight level equivalent of the minimum safe altitude in feet and add the appropriate number of feet specified below according to the current reported altimeter setting. Alright, so if you remember back to 91.19, let's say we're flying over a congested area. We have to fly an altitude of 1,000 feet above the highest obstacle within a horizontal radius of 2,000 feet of the aircraft. So we'll hop back over to 91.121. And here are our altimeter settings, and this is what we have to add to our minimum safe altitude based on our altimeter setting. So for example, if our altimeter setting is 2891 through 2842, we have to add 1,500 feet to our minimum safe altitude. And that's going to do it for this video on 91.117, 91.119, and 91.121. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you in the next one. See ya!